Hi, and welcome to another video by Get It Done Home Repairs. Today's project, we're going to be replacing this wall switch here with one that actually is the correct color. As you can see, this one is a darker color, so this is not the right one that goes into this plate right here. All right, so a couple things you need to know before you do anything is you want to first make sure that the power in this switch is in the off position. All right, so let's talk about the tools we're going to need, and then we're going to get in here and we're going to get this job done. Down here is an example of the tools we're going to be using. We are going to use a couple of different screwdrivers, a flathead, a Phillips head. We may need a pair of needle nose pliers. We may need some wire cutters to snip the wires or strip the insulation, and then possibly another set of pliers like this, but we'll see how it goes. All right, so the first thing we want to make sure is we have our switch that we're going to put back in there. And this particular switch, just so you know, this is what's called a single pole switch, which means that this is only controlled from one location. If you have multiple locations, then it would be a different type of switch you're going to use, but this one is just the switch that we're going to use in this particular job here. First thing we're going to do is we want to make sure we have the power turned off. As you can see, these lights are all off, and the display is showing that it's absolutely dead. And then this one comes up and it feeds power up to this switch right here. But we're still going to be careful when we take it off, just to make sure, because sometimes you can have no power in the switch on the bottom or on the outlet on the bottom, and you may have power in here. So we're going to take this cover off. We're going to use something called a non-contact voltage tester, which is, this just happens to be the one that I have purchased. And what you do is you come in here, once you open this up, you come close to the contacts that are on here, and if it starts beeping and flashing red, then we know that there's power in there. But let's get in there and we'll see what we're going to run into. First thing we'll do is we'll take out these two screws right here to access the switch. And they're basically just flathead screws on here. We just unscrew them, take them out, and remove the cover from the switch itself. You want to hold on to these screws because you're going to need to put these back in your new switch. Don't do that, don't drop them. Okay, now we'll take this switch out of the wall here. Right off the bat I can see that somebody had installed this as a replacement or an upgrade somebody had done here, because back when these houses were built, they were not plastic boxes like this, so somebody was in here, so most likely the power does come from the lower outlet up to here, but we'll see how it goes. We just take these screws and unscrew them. Now we'll pull this out very carefully. If you're trying to pull it out and it's not coming off, sometimes the paint would be on the wall itself. You may have to cut it with a razor knife or a utility knife just to make sure you don't pull the paper off the wall. So we're going to pull this out just a little bit like this, and then we're going to come over on this side right here, and you'll see you'll have your two contacts right here. I can already tell you whoever installed this didn't know what they were doing. I'll explain to you in just a minute. Let's make sure we have no power in there. If there's power, you would touch it and it would start beeping like crazy, but it's not beeping, so we know that there's not a problem. The power is turned off. Let me show you what this will do if the power was on. Okay, and now if there was power in that switch there, we'd bring this in here like this, put it in here, and it would show you the power. You see it blinking red, and it says over here that the voltage it's at 99% of the voltage that's supposed to be in there. So we know that that outlet is alive, but the switch that we're working with is not beeping like that, so we know that it's actually dead. Let's go back and finish up that switch. Okay, the problem we have with this wire here is that you'll see that this goes in the clockwise position to tighten it. But what happens is they put the wire going the other way. It comes from the top around to the bottom. So now when you try to tighten it down in the clockwise position, it's actually forcing this wire open because it grips it, and then it pulls it down and it pulls it out. This wire is supposed to be switched the other way, where the bottom part here is up on top, so that when you tighten it, it actually pulls that wire tighter and therefore this does not happen. It doesn't pull out. And you can see the exact same thing they did up here is actually reversed. So let's disconnect these wires right now. You want to keep in mind which wire was where, so you put it back in the same location. This one is on the bottom, so we're going to make sure we put that on the bottom as well. All right, so this one is disconnected. Now we'll take this one, and we'll disconnect this one, and we're going to turn it over. And we see our ground wire is right there. We're going to remove that ground wire as well. And if it's true to form, it's probably going to be a wrong direction as well, but we'll see how that goes. Now that wire, it wasn't even tight, this screw, so that's never good. You should always make sure it's tight. Okay, we're going to take that off. We are going to correct this because this wire is not the correct wire to have on here. You can see how it's loose in the back over here. See this wire is loose? That wire is doing nothing. That this wire has not even doing any kind of grounding whatsoever. All right, so we are going to replace that wire inside there with the correct wire. Okay, let's take this wire cap off and let's see what's happening. As I said, this wire is all loose in here, so I know it's not connected correctly. And sure enough, there you can see this wire is not even connected up correctly. This wire is not supposed to be black like that. Usually black is because you have some kind of oxidation going on, or the wire is moving around where it shouldn't be. So this we're going to throw away. This is not the right wire for it. What you need to have in here is, you see how this is solid strands right here? You need to have a solid strand wire such as this in there. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to connect this solid strand wire in there. We're just going to put a little bit of a bend to it, just like this, so we can bring it in here. And now we're going to twist these wires together using our pliers. Once we have them twisted together, we take our wire nut, put it on there, and screw it down as tight as you possibly can by hand. And now that'll bind all three of those wires together. Nice and tight. As you can see now, you see that wire? There's no movement in there whatsoever, so we know that everything in here is okay. We're going to take this ground wire now, we're going to push it up into the back of the box to get it out of the way. Okay, now this wire is a little long, so we're going to shorten this down, but let's connect up the other wires that belong on there. Okay, now as you can see, I straightened this wire out, and the reason for that is because this switch is different than the one that was on there. So this wire here, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to just pull it out and straighten it out, just like this. That's when needle nose pliers come in very handy. This one is probably going to be a little bit too long, because what we're going to do is we're going to take this wire and we're going to slide it in behind that little plate right there. Actually, it'll probably be fine just the way it is. We're going to slide it in behind there, and now we're going to tighten that screw down, and that piece of metal right there is what's going to hold that wire, so it actually doesn't have to be wrapped around here. It just slides behind this and we tighten it down. All right, so let's do that. Let me grab my screwdriver, we'll do that. Okay, so now before you put it in, you want to look at your switch, and you'll see on the switch itself, it'll say top. And that's where you want to have facing up, of course. All right, so we're going to take this, we're going to put it in here, just like that. And now we'll tighten down this screw. And we'll make sure we're in all the way. And then we'll tighten it down, just like that. Okay, next we're going to take our other one. We're going to pull this little metal piece here out, just like that, so we can put this wire behind it, like that, and then we'll snug this one down as well. Okay, so those two are now tight. Next we take our ground wire, and we're going to reconnect our ground wire on the other side. So let me do that. Okay, next we're going to take our switch. We're just going to turn it around this way. And you can see that's where our ground wire is going to go. Now remember what I told you about the ground? The ground wire itself is going to turn in a clockwise fashion to tighten it up, just like that. So this wire, we want to have it looped around like this. So now as you tighten this down, it'll pull this end of the wire tighter. But as you can see, this is too long. So we're going to take this, and we're just going to snip it a little bit shorter. Okay, just a little bit shorter like this. And now we're going to take this and put it on that screw. All right, so we pull our wire now on like this. Take our needle nose pliers, and we're going to squeeze together the ground so that it's a fairly tight connection already. And now we'll screw this screw down until it's tight. Now you notice as you turn in the screw, it'll actually pull the open end of the wire tighter. All right, just like that. Make sure your wire is behind this little piece that juts out like that, and you're in good shape. So let's make sure it's real tight. Okay, so it's nice and tight. Next, we're going to take this switch, we're going to push it back into the box right there. These wires here, you see how they're bent a little bit? That's meant to go into the box and push the box back into the wall. So that's what we're going to do. Bend the wires a little bit. Push them behind your switch. Make sure you have your switch so it shows top. You don't want to put it in upside down because then obviously it'll work the wrong way. Put it in there. We're going to hold it in place, and we're going to catch the top screw or bottom screw, whichever your preference is. We're going to catch it by a couple of threads first. Once you have the one screw caught, then you come down to the bottom and you catch your second screw. Okay, and now that you have both of them caught in there, now we can snug them down, hold it in place, and we can tighten these all the way down until they touch into the plastic part of the box, or if you have a metal box, whichever you have. Screw them down evenly. And you want to center the screws so that they're in the center of that slotted opening right there. Just like that. Okay, let's get our cover and put a cover back on. Okay, we put our cover on just like that. Take our two screws that we previously removed from it, and we're going to screw them in loosely. We're not going to tighten the one bottom one yet. You have to catch both top and bottom before you tighten it up all the way. And then we'll snug it down all the way. Remember, you're only screwing into plastic, so don't go too tight. You don't want to break it. Okay. And that's it, our switch is in. And the name of the switch, of course, should be in the up position versus being upside down. If it's upside down, you know you put it in the wrong way. All right, let's go in. Let's turn our circuit breaker back on, and we're going to make sure it works. All right, let's turn our circuit breaker on and make sure it's okay. Okay, so now we turned our power back on. You saw it turned on. We make sure our switch turns on just the way it's supposed to. Now this controls a light on the outside. I am going to go out there to make sure it lights up, but I'm confident it will. All right, that's it. This job is done. The only thing I will tell you is, just because you open up a switch and you find something like this inside there, this is okay to have. You can have this as a ground wire, but you have to make sure that these strands are wrapped around and nice and tight. I don't like using these type of grounds unless it comes with a fixture that you're installing in the ceiling. But that's it. This job is done, and we're on to the next one. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.